The stars over the rift zone flickered like scattered embers in the dark. This part of space was unstable, raw, jagged, and full of ancient wreckage drifting slowly through the void. It was a forgotten region, dangerous and mysterious. But it was also rich in rare resources, and that made it valuable. At the edge of this zone floated Outpost Kyrian, a Terran research station. It was small but critical. Scientists there studied gravitational anomalies and mined exotic particles for energy research. It had no weapons, only shields and a small escort team. At 0420 Standard Time, Kyrian was erased. It began with a bright flash. Energy readings spiked beyond limits. For 3 seconds, the entire outpost glowed white-hot, and then nothing. No signal, no trace. Just silence. Captain Elias Voss sat in the command chair of the TUS Resolve, a long-range Terran warship built for both science and battle. His eyes were fixed on the incoming alert. It had just arrived. A distress beacon from Kyrian, triggered seconds before the station went dark. "Patch it through," Elias said calmly, though a knot had formed in his stomach. The message was short, static-heavy, screaming, then silence. Commander Naira, the comms officer, looked up from her console. "Sir, satellite feed confirms. Kyrian is gone." The bridge went quiet. Elias stood, tall, lean, with streaks of gray at his temples. He had the look of someone who had seen too much, too early. "Set course. Full speed. I want to be there 10 minutes ago." The Resolve jumped to warp. By the time they arrived, there was only dust and fire. Pieces of the station floated in a slow, deadly cloud, metal, glass, and frozen bodies drifting among the wreckage. "No signs of life," said Lieutenant Darren, scanning the area. "But we're picking up a weak life signal nearby." "Lock onto it," Elias ordered. "Bring it aboard." The Resolve's tractor beam pulled in a twisted escape pod. It was scorched and barely holding together. Inside, they found a single survivor, bloodied, unconscious, and in shock. A junior scientist named Mila Tran. Her hands were burned, her breathing shallow. She whispered something over and over as the medics carried her away. Elias leaned in. She was saying, "It wasn't them, it wasn't them." In the war room, Elias examined the recovered data core. It was damaged but partially readable. As it booted up, it showed something strange. Energy signatures at the moment of destruction didn't match Zarvan weapons. They were different, cleaner, sharper, familiar. Naira glanced at him. "Sir, this energy pattern, it looks Alexei." Elias frowned. "But we're allies with the Alexei." "I know. That's what makes it strange." Before they could investigate further, a direct order came from Earth High Command. Priority directive: retaliate immediately against the Zarvan fleet near the rift. They are responsible. Show no hesitation. Elias's jaw clenched. He read the order again. Something felt wrong. "I want a clean copy of that data core," he said. "And I want to know exactly what kind of weapon left that burn mark." Naira nodded. "Yes, sir." As the Resolve turned toward the Zarvan border, Elias sat alone in his quarters, staring at the map of the sector. His fingers hovered over the system icons. Kyrian, the Alexei trade stations, the Zarvan patrol zones. He didn't trust the Alexei. He didn't trust the Zarvans either. But he trusted patterns. And something about this one didn't make sense. The silence of space pressed against the hull. The war had just reached humanity, and Elias Voss was no longer sure who the enemy really was. The stars above the Zarvan border were cold and sharp. Unlike the swirling chaos of the Rift Zone, this region of space was precise, guarded by powerful defense satellites and patrolling warships. It was a warning to anyone who crossed the line. The Zarvan Empire would not tolerate trespass. But the TUS Resolve was already inside. Elias Voss stood at the center of the bridge, arms behind his back, staring at the tactical screen. His ship had crossed into enemy territory under orders from Earth High Command. The target was a mid-tier Zarvan listening post near the edge of the asteroid field known as Vale's Edge. "Zarvan patrols are moving to intercept," Lieutenant Darren said. "We'll be in weapons range in 60 seconds. "Shields up," Elias replied. "Prepare firing solutions, but hold your fire until I give the order." The crew moved quickly. No one questioned the orders out loud, but Elias could feel their unease. No one liked being here. No one liked firing first. Moments later, the Zarvan ships appeared, sleek, sharp, and dark like shadows. They came fast, 3 in formation, their engines burning blue. "They're hailing us," said Naira. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." A cold, static-laced voice came over the bridge speakers. It spoke in Galactic Standard, deep and calm. "This is Commander Telveroin of the Zarvan Imperial Fleet. Terran vessel, you are in violation of sovereign space. Turn back immediately." Elias waited. He wanted to speak. He wanted to ask about Kyrian. But Earth's orders were clear. "Lock weapons," Elias said. "Target their lead ship's engines. Fire on my mark." The seconds stretched long. Then, just before he gave the order, a second signal came in. Encrypted. Private. Directed only to him. "Sir," said Naira quietly. "It's from the Zarvan ship. Personal channel. You're the only one allowed to open it." Elias looked around. Routed to my chair. He sat down and opened the message. A small hollow window appeared in front of him. The face of Telveroin appeared, gray-skinned, sharp-eyed, with a calm expression. "Captain Voss," he said, without anger. "We did not destroy your outpost. I believe you know this already. You are being misled." The screen flickered and went black. Elias stared at it. He had not expected that. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. "Sir?" Naira asked, waiting for the command to fire. Elias paused for 3 long seconds. Then, disengage targeting. Pull us back to scan range. Do not fire unless fired upon. The crew hesitated, but followed his lead. The Resolve drifted backward, away from the Zarvan line. The enemy ships did not pursue. Instead, they held position and watched. Later, in the war room, Elias met with his officers. The tension was thick. "We were ordered to strike," Commander Arden said, frustrated. "We had the shot. We also had doubt," Elias replied. "And a direct warning from the enemy commander that makes too much sense." Naira nodded. "I finished decoding the rest of the escape pod data. The energy signature that destroyed Kyrian. It matches Alexei plasma tech. Not Zarvan." Arden frowned. "But the Alexei are our allies." Elias shook his head. "Allies can lie, especially when they want someone else to fight their war." Silence filled the room. Then Naira added, "We also got something else. The Zarvan prisoner we took on the edge of the rift is awake. He's asking to speak to you." In the ship's med bay, the Zarvan captive sat in a reinforced chair, arms bound. His skin was pale silver, eyes black like onyx. He looked up as Elias entered. "You're Elias Voss," he said calmly. "I've studied your records." "I didn't know I was so famous," Elias said. "You won't be," the prisoner replied. "Not if you follow your orders." Elias stepped closer. "Did your people destroy Kyrian?" "No," the Zarvan said. "We had nothing to gain from it. But the Alexei did. They've been losing ground. They need a spark to pull your people in fully." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're not stupid," the Zarvan said simply. "You know something doesn't add up. I'm giving you the truth. What you do with it is your choice." Hours later, Elias stood alone in his quarters, staring out at the stars. The pieces were falling into place, but they pointed in a direction he wasn't sure he wanted to follow. He had disobeyed a direct order. He had spared the enemy. He had listened to a warning from the side he was told to hate. But deep down, Elias knew he wasn't wrong. Something bigger was happening, and humanity had just stepped into a war far more complicated than it seemed. The Resolve drifted quietly through the outer edge of the Veil's Edge asteroid field. Dust and rock floated all around like silent watchers. No comm traffic, no beacons, just a deep stillness broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. Captain Elias Voss stood on the observation deck alone, watching fragments of dead rock drift past. He had spent most of the night replaying the Zarvan prisoner's words in his head. The Alexei need a spark. It echoed like a whisper that wouldn't leave. He had never trusted politicians. He had learned early in his career that power loved lies. But now those lies were taking shape, and they looked like allies. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft sound of footsteps. "Sir," said Commander Naira, "we've cleaned up more of the escape pod's data. You'll want to see this." Elias followed her to the command center. The room was dim, lit mostly by blue displays and the pulsing glow of scanned images. On the screen, a set of energy readings hovered in the air. "This is from the exact moment Kyrian was hit," Naira explained. "We matched the frequency of the plasma burst to a specific weapon, one used by Alexei skirmish ships." Elias nodded slowly. "That's not standard issue, is it?" No, sir, she confirmed. This version is custom. Off the record. Probably Black Ops. Someone wanted the outpost destroyed, but not traced. Then they failed, Elias said. And now we know. Later that day, in the ship's private secure comms room, Elias sent out a tight beam signal on an old encryption channel, one barely used since the early days of Terran expansion. It was a personal line, connected only to one name. Dr. Thran, a xenoscientist and former war advisor from the neutral world of Halen 6. Thran answered after a moment. His image flickered onto the screen. Thin, with pale green skin and a cybernetic implant over one eye, he looked exactly as Elias remembered him. Calm, sharp, and too clever for comfort. Captain Voss, Thran said. You're not calling to catch up, I assume. I need information, Elias said. Off the record. Quiet. Thran leaned forward. You're near the rift. Something happened. A Terran outpost was destroyed. Earth says the Zarvans did it. I don't think that's true. Thran paused, then tapped something off-screen. You're right, he said softly. The energy pattern used at Kyrian matches a classified Alexei weapon developed 4 years ago. Illegal under the Galactic Treaty. I was part of the investigation team. The project was buried. Why would the Alexei do this? Elias asked. Because they're losing, Thran replied. The Zarvans have been pushing them back. They need reinforcements. Your people. But the Terran Union didn't want to take sides. So the Alexei made sure you had no choice. Elias stared at the screen. It was one thing to suspect betrayal. It was another to hear it confirmed. I'm sending you the files I have, Thran added. Be careful, Elias. If you have this truth, someone will want to silence you. As the data uploaded, Elias walked slowly through the dim hallway leading back to the bridge. The hum of the ship felt louder than usual. The weight of his next decision was crushing. He returned to the war room and called a meeting with his senior crew. The door sealed behind them. We're not going back to Earth, Elias began. Not yet. The officers glanced at each other. I believe the Alexei destroyed Kyrian to frame the Zarvans, he said. I have evidence. And if it's true, we've been manipulated into a war that's not ours. Silence. Then Commander Arden spoke. So what do we do now? We go deeper, Elias said. We cross into Alexei space. We find the source of this weapon. We get the truth. Arden's voice was firm. That's treason. No, Elias replied. It's survival. An hour later, the Resolve shut down its transponder and slipped into stealth mode. Engines powered down to minimum. Lights dimmed. The ship faded into the shadows of space like a ghost. They had left Terran space behind. They were no longer following orders. They were following the truth. And whatever they found next, there would be no going back. The Alexei border was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Elias Voss stared at the display screen as the Resolve crept through enemy space. The stars here were dimmer. The systems ahead were uninhabited by design. The Alexei called this region the Pale Divide. It was a buffer zone, a dead stretch of space filled with old war debris and hidden surveillance probes. This is where the map ends, said Commander Naira. Beyond this point, we're blind. Keep us dark, Elias replied. No signals, no lights. We find that station, get proof, and get out. He stood slowly and walked toward the main view panel. They were hunting shadows in the dark, but one of those shadows had destroyed an outpost and nearly started a galactic war. He wasn't going home empty-handed. 3 hours later, they found it. It wasn't marked on any star chart. It didn't transmit a signal. It drifted in orbit around a dying moon, cloaked and almost invisible, except for a faint heat signature. Unregistered structure detected, reported Darren. Size, medium. Energy core active. Cloaking grid at 60%. Scan for life, Elias ordered. 24 life signs. Mostly Alexei. 1 human signature, possibly captive. Elias narrowed his eyes. Bring us in. Prepare boarding teams. I'm going over myself. Inside the alien station, the air was cold and dry. The corridors were smooth and sterile, walls made of light gray metal, glowing faintly from within. The team moved silently, weapons ready. There were no alarms. No resistance. It was like the station didn't expect to be found. They reached a lab chamber near the center. What they found stopped them in their tracks. Rows of pods lined the walls, each holding a human inside. Some were unconscious, some awake but sedated. Thin tubes ran from their arms and necks, feeding into machines that pulsed with light. God, Naira whispered. They're experimenting on them. Elias stepped forward, heart pounding. These are Kyrian survivors, he said. They didn't all die? The Alexei took them. He turned to a nearby control console and activated the logs. The display filled with symbols, then auto-translated. Project Echo Fire. Purpose: biological enhancement using Terran DNA. Objective: weaponized Terran adaptability for frontline assault units. The room fell silent. They used our own people to build a weapon, Darren said bitterly. Our allies. Not anymore, Elias said, voice cold. Suddenly, the alarms blared. The room flashed red. They've found us, Naira said. Enemy ships inbound. We're cut off. Back to the docking bay, Elias ordered. But before they could move, a side door slid open. A tall figure stepped through. Pale skin, black uniform, sharp eyes. Telveruin. The Zarvan commander raised his hand, signaling no threat. We don't have time for explanations, he said. I'm here to destroy this place. If you want to live, follow me. Elias aimed his weapon. Why should I trust you? Because I saved your crew, Telveruin replied. And because if we don't work together now, none of us are getting out. The two teams moved quickly, fighting off Alexei guards as the station's internal defenses activated. Elias and Telveruin covered each other without speaking. Enemies one day, allies the next. In the final chamber, they reached the power core. It pulsed like a heartbeat, glowing with unstable energy. This entire station is a lab, Telveruin said. Destroying it will expose the truth and stop their program. Elias nodded. Set the charge. 10 minutes. They planted explosives, grabbed the surviving captives, and raced back to the Resolve. The station exploded behind them, lighting up the black with silent fire. Back aboard his ship, Elias stood on the bridge. His crew looked to him, waiting for answers. We've been used, Elias said. Earth trusted the Alexei. That trust was broken. We have proof. Biological experiments. Kidnapped citizens. War crimes. He paused. But if we go back now, they'll silence us. Earth won't want this truth. Neither will the Alexei. Commander Arden spoke. Then what do we do? Elias turned to the stars. We send a signal. A full broadcast. Across all colonies. We show them everything. And after that? Naira asked. He looked over at the tactical screen, where Alexei and Zarvan ships now filled the edge of their sensors. Then we fight our own war, he said. For truth. For our people. The TUS Resolve drifted at the edge of a dying star system. Solar winds howled silently through space, sweeping glowing clouds of ash and fire across the black sky. At the center of this chaos was an Alexei structure, tall, dark, and pulsing with stolen power. It orbited close to the unstable star, feeding on its radiation. This was the Alexei's final weapon lab. Captain Elias Voss stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the screen. There it is, said Commander Naira. The last lab. According to Telveruin's data, this is where they plan to activate the enhanced bioweapon fleet. Elias nodded. His face was tired, but focused. And they'll use it to strike both us and the Zarvans. End the war in one blow, with humans as their weapons. The bridge crew was silent. They had seen the truth. They had witnessed the experiments. They knew now what kind of war they were truly in, and they knew there was no turning back. Status on the transmission? Elias asked. Full broadcast sent to all colonies and outer systems, said Arden. We attached visual logs from the Alexei labs, voice files, prisoner interviews, and sensor data. The message went wide. Any response? Mixed. Some colonies believe us. Others call it a lie. Earth has officially branded you a traitor. They've ordered any loyal fleet ships to hunt us down. Elias said nothing. He had expected that. But another voice cut in. Zarvan ships incoming, said Darren. It's Telveruin's fleet. They're sending docking signals. Let them in. The meeting room was tense. Telveruin entered with 3 of his commanders, their armor black and marked with gold. Elias met him face to face, without ceremony. I received your transmission, Telveruin said. It was braver than I expected. We told the truth, Elias replied. That's all. Telveruin nodded. Truth is rare and dangerous. They stood over a holomap of the weapon facility orbiting the dying star. This station is protected by a plasma shield powered by the star itself, Naira explained. We can't attack it directly. Then we overload it from inside, Elias said. I'll take the resolve in close, disable the shield generator manually, and send coordinates for your fleet to strike. Once the shield drops, hit it with everything you have. Telvaroin raised an eyebrow. That close to the star, you won't escape. I know. A long silence followed. Arden stepped forward. Captain, there must be another way. There isn't, Elias said softly. We started this fight by trusting the wrong people. I'm going to end it by doing what's right. The resolve made its final approach. The heat from the dying star scorched the hull. The crew worked quickly, guiding the ship through radiation clouds and plasma storms. Shield generators locked, said Naira. We'll be in position in 4 minutes. Elias stood at the helm. He had ordered the rest of the crew to board escape pods and dock with Telvaroin's fleet. Most had obeyed. A few stayed behind, Naira, Arden, and Darren among them. You should have gone with the others, Elias said. Naira smiled sadly. We follow our captain. Inside the Alexei station, resistance was heavy. Elias and his team fought through narrow corridors, trading fire with Alexei guards. The halls shook with every impact. Time was running out. They reached the generator core, a tall, humming structure bathed in white-blue energy. Charges placed, Darren said. Timer set, 3 minutes. Elias looked around one last time. Everyone out. The others hesitated, then ran. Elias stayed behind. He moved to the manual override panel and activated the final sequence. Sparks flew as the power grid began to collapse. His last transmission was to Telvaroin. Shield down. Hit it now. Moments later, the Alexei facility erupted in flame. The blast lit up the entire system. The weapon was gone. But so was the resolve. The war changed overnight. The truth spread. Terran citizens, shocked by the Alexei betrayal, demanded answers. The Terran High Council was forced to break the alliance. The Alexei fleet retreated. Peace talks began between the Terrans and Zarvans. Telvaroin kept his word. He stood before the Galactic Assembly and said, Captain Elias Voss died fighting for peace. For truth. For honor. Across dozens of systems, people whispered his name with respect. Some called him a traitor. But most called him something else, the man who refused to follow a lie. Far away, in a quiet and hidden medical chamber on an unknown planet, a figure stirred in a stasis pod. His eyes opened slowly. Machines beeped softly. Alien symbols glowed on the walls. A voice spoke in a language he didn't know. Then it translated. Captain Elias Voss. You have survived. We've been watching. And we need your help. Pain. That was the first thing Captain Elias Voss felt. Not sharp, but deep, like his bones had been broken and reassembled one by one. His eyes opened slowly. White light above. Soft humming sounds. He blinked. A ceiling of smooth metal curved above him, glowing faintly. Strange shapes moved across its surface like writing. Symbols he didn't recognize. He was alive. Elias tried to sit up, but his arms were heavy. Wires connected his body to strange machines, some monitoring, others injecting something warm into his veins. He wasn't on the resolve. That ship was gone. He had stayed behind. He had activated the core. He had watched the station burn. So why was he breathing? A door slid open. Footsteps approached. 2 figures entered, tall, with long limbs and narrow faces. Not Alexei. Not Zarvan. Something else. Their skin shimmered like glass, changing color as they moved. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a soft, musical voice. Elias didn't understand the words, but then a device at his side activated. Captain Elias Voss, the voice translated. You are safe. You are among the Ellerin. We have watched the war. We pulled you from the edge of the explosion. Elias coughed. His throat was dry. Why? Because you chose truth over power. That is rare in your kind. We have stayed hidden for a long time. But now, we must speak. Elias sat up slowly. His strength was returning. You're another race. Older than the Zarvans. Older than the Alexei. We left the galaxy's affairs long ago. But the Alexei weapon program nearly reached our domain. That cannot be allowed. Elias stood now, weak but steady. You're afraid the war will spread. Not afraid, the Ellerin replied. Prepared. But we wish to avoid destruction. That is why we brought you back. Another wall lit up, showing images from across space. Terran fleets regrouping. Zarvan cruisers entering peace talks. Alexei leaders retreating into isolation. The galaxy had changed in his absence. You made them see the truth, the Ellerin said. But truth needs protection. Elias stared at the image of Earth. His home. Changed, uncertain. What do you want from me? He asked. The Ellerin replied calmly. To lead. To guide your people toward peace. Not with war, but with knowledge. With warning. The next threat will not be so obvious. Elias was quiet for a moment. He thought of the crew he had left behind. The battles they had fought. The lies they had broken. He thought of the signal he sent. The truth that set fire to the stars. And now, something new was beginning. He nodded slowly. Then I need my ship, he said. And a message to send. Weeks later, a new vessel emerged from a hidden space near the edge of the rift zone. It looked Terran, but sleeker. Faster. Quiet. Its signal was encrypted and locked. Inside stood Elias Voss, alive and in command. He looked out at the stars, not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as something else now. A watcher. A guardian. His voice echoed through the ship's comms. Begin transmission to Terran Command and all colonies. He paused, then spoke. This is Captain Elias Voss. I'm alive, and we're not alone. Back on Earth, officials froze in shock. Some smiled. Some panicked. Across colonies, people stopped to listen. A man they thought dead was speaking again. And what came next would change the galaxy once more.